And welcome to Hollywood Smoke in the beautiful city of Santa Monica. I am Steve Kim. Welcome to another edition of 10 Count. I'm joined by Mr. Michael Montero of Montero on Boxing and the editor-in-chief of Ring TV, Doug Fisher. Guys, let's get right into this. Barclays Center, Brooklyn, New York this past weekend. Miguel Cotto successfully defends his middleweight title against Daniel Geale. Doug, let's go to you first. Have catchweights jumped the shark? We have middleweights now imposing catchweights on other middleweights. That's not what that was intended for.
We have middleweights who admit they're not middleweights who weigh in under the junior middleweight division, asking full-bodied middleweights to dry themselves out in order to fight for the middleweight title. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. There are too many catchweights. It's been around in boxing for decades, even going back to the golden age. Everybody remembers that scene in Raging Bull where Jake LaMotta is yelling at his brother Joey for making a catchweight bout with, I think, Tony Gennaro, having him come down to 155 pounds. He doesn't know he can make the weight, and, you know, it's a classic scene. YouTube it, folks. So obviously it's been around. It's been around for decades. But it's so prevalent in recent years. I know hardcore fans are sick of it, and I'm a hardcore fan. I don't just cover boxing. I'm a hardcore fan. So when I hear there's going to be a welterweight fight between Adrian Broner and Sean Porter, I get excited. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting matchup. These guys are young men. They're athletic. You know, they got speed and power. And then you hear, oh, no, it's going to be at there's going to be a 144-pound weight limit. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, it's still technically a welterweight bout, but I know Sean Porter. I know that he's already come down in weight. I know he came down from like middleweight to junior middleweight. And I know how hard he had to work to make welterweight. So I'm asking myself, and, you know, we've all met him, right? He's nothing but muscle. So you're asking yourself, where are you going to get these 3 pounds? And the same thing with Daniel Geale. It's like, dude, you're not a young man. You're 34. You've been a full-bodied middleweight your whole career. You sometimes fought at super middleweight. Where are you going to give up these 3 pounds? And you hear casual fans say, it's just 3 pounds. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter how many pounds if you go past your body's threshold.
Especially once you're 30 years old and older.
Once you're over 30, you could just go half a pound. You can go 1 ounce
and it's
over your body's threshold.
Ounce that kills you.
Right, and you're essentially sick. You make yourself sick and you can't really perform.
Historically, you're a historian. Weren't catchweights really designed when you had the traditional 8? And when you had 147 to 160, there was no junior middleweight. So it was used to bridge really big differences in weight and to make fights fair. Now the alarming trend is it's not only for economic leverage, I think worse, it's being used for a competitive disadvantage for the B side. So whatever chance Geale had at winning, at 157, when he's looking like Skeletor at the weigh-in, you're saying to yourself, he doesn't have much of a chance here.
He looked like the Walking Dead. He looked like a zombie, right? This was a super junior middleweight bout.
Cotto weight.
It was a Cotto weight bout. And the thing is, I tend to give Cotto a pass for stuff like this at this stage of his career because he is the one guy in this era who's fought everybody, right? So if he wants to call the shots right now, that's cool. My problem is you're calling this a middleweight championship fight. It wasn't. And you're right, to bring up the junior and super divisions, those were brought in essentially as catchweight divisions. But now we're having, like you're talking about Broner and Porter, that's a super junior welterweight bout. I mean, I don't know what the hell to call these fights anymore. And if PBC, if you're trying to build casual fans, you know, with this Porter-Broner fight, what do you call this?
And by the way, Porter fought as an amateur at 165. That just goes to show you how much...
He's a stocky dude.
Yeah, and he's got a big chest, doesn't have a lot to lose. How much credit do you give Miguel Cotto for beating this version of Daniel Geale? I'll say this. Was he dissipated? Maybe. But that booming left hook, I think at any weight, that would have knocked over a lot of middleweights. So with that said, how much does that mean then?
Well, listen, it means a lot for Miguel Cotto. We can all talk about the matchmaking, and there's been careful matchmaking with Miguel Cotto since he hired Freddie Roach as his trainer. Freddie is not just good in the gym. He knows who his fighters can beat and who his fighters can shine against. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing for the fighter, particularly one who has had as many wars as Miguel Cotto. He's 34, but he's an old 34 because of the battles that he's had. And he was coming off back-to-back decision losses to Floyd Mayweather Jr. and to Austin Trout. So his confidence was shattered. Well, I would say his confidence has not only been put back together, I think it's at an all-time high. And I would just say this, his technique and his form is as good as I've seen it since before the first fight with Antonio Margarito.
I was going to say, he went downstairs with that left hook.
Yeah.
Geale dropped that right hand, and then he came over the top of this. It was textbook. But Geale's that kind of guy where he does everything pretty good, but nothing great. Doesn't have that X factor. So what does it mean for Cotto at middleweight? It didn't really show me much.
I'll say this. I thought Geale would be a tougher out. He has a pretty good middleweight track record, won a couple of belts. But it was so funny. When you see Geale work out in his regular workout clothes, he kind of reminds me of like those white-collar guys that work out at Wildcard twice a week. He doesn't look all that athletic. And I don't say to myself, well, that must be a pro fighter who's won belts, who's elite. So with that said, I think with Cotto, I still think he's very good at a certain weight that he can pick and choose. But I do think, as Doug said, there's a bit of a mirage. And I'm telling you, Freddie Roach has been more impactful as a matchmaker than as a trainer. He's the best matchmaker since Chuck Woolery. And that is a very old show that I'm bringing up. But
Love Connection?
Yeah, Love Connection. I can't believe I brought that up. But Delvin Rodriguez, journeyman, ESPN level fighter. Sergio Martinez had one knee at best.
Crippled.
Daniel Geale dissipated at 157 and very safe. And Freddie actually admitted to me, I handpicked this guy. So with that said, if they fight in November, and I'm being told that there's a template set, contracts are already out, they got to figure out the X, Y's, and Z's to make this happen. Michael, who do you favor if they fought in 6 months based on what we've seen recently? Miguel Cotto or Canelo Alvarez?
You have to go with Canelo. He's too young, too strong. I know he doesn't cut off the ring very well. That's something he hasn't learned yet, but you don't need to cut off the ring against Miguel Cotto. So I have to favor him to just kind of bull rush through Cotto. I think it's going to be competitive early. I think Cotto will win some early rounds, land some shots. I think it's actually going to be a really good fight, action-wise. But down the stretch, I just think Canelo is going to be too strong. I like Alvarez by late TKO, possibly.
Doug? I do too. And I think it's going to be a hell of a fight because Miguel Cotto was a proud warrior. You got the Puerto Rican-Mexico rivalry. That's going to bring out the best of both fighters. But if either of these guys is a middleweight, it's the younger man. It's the 24-year-old. It's the Mexican. And even if they weigh in at 155, as Canelo Alvarez showed us against James Kirkland, he can weigh in at 154.5, and he can come in, a solid super middleweight, 167 pounds, and be fast, and be accurate, and be quick, and have all his reflexes. Having said that, I think Cotto obviously has the quality experience. He's the more versatile boxer puncher. I think he's got deceptively quick hands, and his body attack and his left hook appear to be at their peak once again. So he's going to be dangerous. But here's the thing. Delvin Rodriguez, Sergio Martinez, and Daniel Geale did not have the power to hurt Miguel Cotto or even get his respect. Canelo does.
That's my other point,
That's the big difference.
Upstairs and downstairs.
Upstairs and downstairs. Guys, he will hurt Cotto. He'll let Cotto know you're in a fight. He'll also let Cotto know, you know what? Your best years were behind you.
If you look at the box record of both guys, it's been a while since either guy has faced a puncher. See, to me, that's the fascinating point, is that both guys are facing guys. Kirkland's a good offensive fighter. But when he's on. But he long layoff, no Ann Wolf, there are certain factors. Austin Trout was a guy who's very tricky. Floyd Mayweather's a guy that picks you apart one by one. But both guys now are facing an offensive threat. I think that's what makes this fight so fascinating. I think it is twice the fight from an action standpoint of what we saw May 2nd. One last issue on Miguel Cotto. Since he's 34, and I heard this with Sergio Martinez at the end of his reign, he's the champion. I don't want to I'm getting sick of this trend. Well, he's at a certain age. Now he deserves a 401k plan. I'm sorry. If you wear the crown, uneasy lies the head. That's the way I feel about it. I don't think you get a break based on age. That's not the way the game has been in the past.
They're going to do a fight probably at 155 pounds, so they can call it a middleweight championship fight, which is, can I say it, bullshit.
Whoa.
But they're going to do that as a marketing thing, because then I think Canelo will win the fight. Then he can say that he's the middleweight champion, and that makes a fight with Golovkin next year, hopefully, more marketable.
And hopefully at no catchweight.
Oh, God. Yeah,
hopefully Canelo's going to be old school, be a young guy, and not play that whole A side.
But
I'm the star attraction. I can do that.
Issue with the catchweights. It's also being used as a shelter away from guys what I call the Golovkin diet, which is currently going on at right around 154 to 157 pounds. All right, well, that's it for this segment of the 10 Count. On behalf of Michael Montero and Doug Fisher, this is Steve Kim saying till the next round, goodbye, everybody.